Well, welcome. Good afternoon, everyone. Jayven Krepel is our presenter, and many of you have had him in class already before. He is going to be presenting today. He's toughing through a little vocal cord issue, so if you're listening to the recording today, hopefully you can be heard. Maybe we'll put in subtitles or something like that. And everyone in the audience, if you need to move up, he's going to try his best to be as clear as possible. But Jayven has been working really hard on this topic, done some, tried his best with research. I'll let him explain the whole process of what he's done and some of the bumps in the road that happen with research always. A little bit about Jayven. He is a senior, graduating next in the spring. He'll be student teaching at Norfolk Middle School, 6th grade. And Jayven's been a really good student here at Wayne State College, working really hard, juggling a lot of things. A lot of people know him from the band and the choir. He's active in that as well. Just a great all-around student. So, without further ado, I'll turn it over to Jayven to present on your wonderful topic. Thank you.
All right, good afternoon. Thank you for coming today. Like he said, last night I got a cold and it completely wiped out my voice. So this is a lot better than it was this morning, and my professors can vouch for that. So I'm excited that I can even really project at all. The title of my presentation is The Invisible Hand, a Study of Self-Censorship in Northeast Nebraska. This kind of came about because if you've been looking at the news recently, there's been a lot of stuff, especially in Florida, Texas, and Iowa, where they've been implementing new and strict censorship laws in the classrooms. This has been causing a high amount of books to be suddenly pulled from shelves because they were deemed inappropriate. And I really dove into this being, is this normal? Is this following procedures? Is this good? Is this healthy? And so, kind of going to look through those procedures and then look through the study that I created in response to it. First on, what is censorship? According to the Oxford Dictionary, it is the suppression or prohibition of any parts of books, films, news, etc. that are considered obscene, politically unacceptable, or a threat to security. For the purpose of this study, I was looking specifically at books in schools in Nebraska, specifically in ESU 1. So just to keep that a little more where I can kind of control those variables. To explain censorship, there are two parts of censorship. For the first part, it's called the challenge and the ban. If a parent or a community member feels that a book should not be included in the classroom, they can formally challenge it. Then at a designated time, they present why it should be removed, and the teacher or librarian presents why it should stay, and then they do a vote on it. If the challenge is successful, then the book becomes banned. If it fails, then the book stays. These are what are called policies. So they're school or community guidelines that decide how these processes are meant to go about. After this, once a teacher follows all these policies, they're then able to create their own practices, or personal decisions regarding their classroom, such as which books to include, how to organize the books, what the reading level is, and so it's really broken down to these policies and these practices. Self-censorship is the act of censoring a piece of media because of preemptive fear that someone will find it offensive. This can be really dangerous as it removes books from students that could have high literary value, but because it contains something potentially controversial, it is removed. So my study was really looking at that self-censorship portion of there is nothing specifically telling them to remove it, but what are they doing in response to it. So my project goals were most issues regarding censorship happen in larger cities or states, and especially politically charged states. This means that the majority of the United States does not deal with direct censorship issues, but this doesn't mean that it doesn't indirectly affect teachers. My project aims to understand how teachers in Northeast Nebraska are affected by self-censorship and how their personal experiences with censorship shape their classroom decisions. So for my methodology, I created a questionnaire and sent it to 50 different full-time 3rd through 8th grade teachers in ESU 1. So I went to the public websites, randomly selected different teachers who met those criteria, created my list, and sent that out to them. I focused on 3 main topics. One, their current opinions on censorship, their personal experiences with censorship, and topics that they avoid when they're picking out books. I felt that this really covered a wide range of the censorship issue and helped to give a little more authenticity to their answers. We did an initial field study with about 25 pre-service teachers just to see how the questions sound, if they get quality results from them, and they turned out well, and so I did some editing, and off they went. I waited about 3 weeks to let participants fill out the questionnaire and then sent 2 reminder emails. I hope to get at least 10 to 15 responses. So as I get reliable results, I got 4. So yeah, that was a little bit of a bummer that, I mean, it's not really reliable, the amount. So with the help of Dr. Vilkas, we did another field study with the same questionnaire with 2 of his classes of pre-service teachers, bringing it up to about 60 responses, which was a lot more doable. The biggest issue is that because they are not current teachers, their answers couldn't necessarily be taken as reliable, but it did at least give me a good starting point. For what I found regarding the current opinions, there were 3 main ideas. About half of them felt that censorship can be good but must be used appropriately. Especially because it holds the teachers accountable. So making sure that teachers really are putting good stuff in the classroom. If they feel that it's not, then they should be able to call that out. About a fourth of them said that it's the responsibility of the teachers, not the parents. Teachers did go to college, they learned how to pick books, that they should be trusting the teachers to be doing their job correctly. And then the third opinion was that censorship should not exist at all. That there should be open access for all students because it reduces the ability for students to read different viewpoints if we decide what's good or bad for students to read. Continuing for the personal experiences, I was kind of surprised almost none of them had any personal experiences with censorship. There were, especially in the pre-service teachers, there were a couple that said that they had books in their classrooms that felt that they were a little risque to be being used, or that they had a teacher had an issue, but they personally had never had anything happen to them. Many of the especially in the 4, noted that they simply followed the policy of their school and had never had any issues with it. For the topics that they avoided, they were very similar to the topics that are most often censored across the United States, including race, gender identity, sexual orientation, and controversial politics. So there was a very clear overlap between them and the rest of the U.S. So in conclusion, I really found that self-censorship could be a potential issue in Northeast Nebraska, but most of the responses aimed at creating positive and open educational environments for their students, but also said that they would not include topics that could be deemed controversial, so it kind of pushed against itself of, we're trying to be open, but we're not really going to be too open, and so it was a little bit push and pull there. This directly correlates to self-censorship, as the topics being excluded often bring new perspectives and ideas to students who it may be important to, and it helps turn students into independent critical thinkers. Regarding my limitations, the 2 big ones were the number of participants and time. So obviously with only four people who participated, it kind of lowered the amount of reliable resources I had to go from. So if I would have had more time, I would have really liked to go out to more people or find another route. We discussed maybe doing in-person interviews, or maybe broadening a little bit more, including maybe the ESUs around that as well. But with a limit on time, it was hard to really do much about that. So for future research, because of the low number of responses in a short time frame, I was not able to create reliable or certain results. The field test was the main source of my conclusions. To solve this issue, I would definitely recommend future research to reach out to more teachers or conduct interviews to gain more data. If I were to do this study again, I would focus on finding out how teachers are influencing their decisions regarding books. That was definitely a shortcoming in that, was that we got all the information and then it just kind of stopped there. And so what do we do about it? Where do we go past that? And so that's where I would really want to go after this. For my personal goals next semester, I'll be student teaching in 6th grade at Norfolk Middle School. Then after graduating this spring, I plan on becoming a full-time teacher in my own classroom, most likely here in the Northeast Nebraska area. This project was significant because what books to include in the classroom is one of the most important decisions a teacher makes. It is our decision what literature we expose our students to, and therefore our responsibility to provide quality literature. Personally, the laws being put in place in other states do concern me, and I often worry about what experiences I will have as I transition into my career. So this project was really a, what do I do in this state? What have other teachers been doing? How do they respond? Through this study, I've gained confidence in my abilities to perform quality research, create a research study, and draw conclusions from the results I received. I may do this in my own classroom for a multitude of different reasons. I felt that this was a really great experience to begin that. Thank you all for coming today. And what questions do we have?
Do you see yourself asking some of these types of questions that were in your survey to the operating teachers and different people that you will work with?
Yeah, absolutely.